Hello and welcome back to Psychiatric Exile. This week I wanted to do something different. Instead of the usual movie or anime analysis, I'm going to count down my top 10 enemy robots of the Mazinger Z anime series. This was my first anime series. I watched this in the late 70s. I must have been 9, 10 years old. And in Puerto Rico, we were lucky enough that we got this series broadcasted from beginning to end and also uncensored. So it was the right way to experience the best way, other than being a native Japanese speaker, to the best way to experience this series. I watched the anime series recently from beginning to end, and while I did that, I organized a list of my favorite enemy robots, and I got the list was like 35 Kikaiju long, and I'm choosing my top 10 to share with you guys. So at number 10, Glen Ghost C3. Yeah, he appeared in episode 29. This also known as part you can disregard. This is for the Spanish version of this video because depending on the Latin American country or Spain, you could get different names for the robots. Anyway, this guy was 19 meters tall, 210 tons heavy, and he had a number of interesting weapons. This disc that we see here was a thermal disc, and it got attached to Mazinger or to whatever building he wanted to attack, and becoming really, really hot and doing damage that way. It helped him keep the distance from Mazinger during the battle, which allowed him to use his other main weapon, this ball and chain system that he had on both arms, and that allowed him to generate incredible amounts of leverage. This was a very, very strong robot. His commander was Baron Ashura, and he inflicted severe damage to Aphrodite and nearly defeated Mazinger. Um, because once he hit Mazinger with the ball and chain, Messenger started to malfunction, so Koji couldn't use the Breath of Fire, the Rust Hurricane, the Photon Beam. They all malfunctioned. He also inflicted serious damages to the Institute. And he was destroyed only because Dr. Yumi came up with a plan to use the momentum generated by this ball and chain system against the robot. So he lifted Messenger, and when Messenger was about to hit the ground, Koji transferred that momentum back to the robot, lifted the robot and the Kikaiju, and then smash him to the ground. But up to that point, it looked like he was going to destroy Messenger. I think because his weapon system was so ingenious, and because of the damage, the degree of damage he inflicted on Messenger, this was a very memorable robot. Number 9, Kama K5 appear on episode 41, and look at this beauty. I mean, the color combination is amazing. That yellow with red and black and purple, simply stunning. This robot was 18 meters tall, 190 tons in weight. He had this sickle type of weapon attached to a stick that formed like a lance. He had optic rays and electric discharges that generated from clouds, and also missiles that destroyed the protective barrier of the Institute. The commander was Count Brocken, and this guy actually caught Skrander's wings. He was eventually destroyed by the Breath of Fire, but he flew really high, up to 20 kilometers in altitude, And then up there, he generated an electric storm that discharged on Mazinger, and this was uh, something that we later saw on Great Mazinger had a similar weapon. Uh, he caught one of the Skrander's wings, and then Koji made him cut the second Skrander wing to regain his balance, and that's how he was able to defeat him, regain his balance, and then defeat the robot with the breath of fire. And like I said, amazing design and colors. Number 8, Deviler X1, episode 19, height 19 meters, weight 200 tons. He was able to camouflage his presence. He had electric rays. He had pretty cool missiles that were shot from inside his knee. The knee separated from the lower leg separated from the kneecap, and then he shot missiles from the lower leg. And he was very agile in flight. His commander was Baron Ashura, and he destroyed Massinger's arm with one of his missiles. He was destroyed by the breath of fire, which was the the go-to weapon of Koji when everything else failed. It was probably the strongest offensive weapon Mazinger had. Something memorable is that the design is similar to what eventually was Devilman, another one of Go Nagai's creations. He was the first Kikaiju capable to attack from the air. There were other Kikaijus before him that were able to fly, but did not attack from the air. They touched ground and then attacked. And also memorable that his first mission was espionage. It added a nice layer of um, uh, complexity to the robot strategy. And again, pretty stunning design in terms of colors and lines. Number 7, Spartan K5, appear on episode 14. This is one that, from the first time I watched this episode, I was in awe of just the concept behind this robot. This one was 18 meters tall and 200 tons in weight, and he had a trident. He had this shield and tremendous brute strength. Commander again was Baron Ashura, and he destroyed one of Massinger's rocket punch, and his trident could penetrate the Z alloy that Massinger was built with. Uh, he was destroyed because of Dr. Hale's and Baron Ashura's incompetence. They became frustrated because of the robot's um, refusal to fight. So they planted explosives inside of him, and that's how he was destroyed. He otherwise, I think, this is another robot that would have destroyed Messenger if it wasn't for Koji getting lucky in that sense. So this robot was very memorable because he was a sentient robot. He was self-aware. He had consciousness. In fact, Dr. Hale gave him the consciousness of a Mohican warrior and a Roman gladiator, that combination. And he only fought in self-defense. That's why when Messenger first encountered him, he was taking a nap, and Koji just joined him, and that's how we got this memorable image here. I would never I never forgot this once I saw it as a little kid. He refused to follow Dr. Hill's or Baron Ashura's orders, and he only engaged in fighting when his drive to fight was awakened by the sound of drums. Shiro and his friends were playing the drums and dancing close to the robot, and once he heard those tribal drums, Somehow his will to fight became activated, and he attacked Mazinger. But just when he was about to have the upper hand, the explosives that Dr. Hill and Baron Ashura had planted went off, and he got destroyed. His shield even had the capacity to block the breath of fire. That's how strong this robot was really amazing. Number six, Genova M9 appeared on episode 66, 18 meters, 180 tons. He could fly, and he could generate a whirlwind to camouflage his flight. And he had a rifle and a pistol. He was a sharpshooter, and he was commanded both by Baron Ashura and Count Brocken. He destroyed a passenger plane, and he destroyed one of Massinger's antenna. And this was another sentient robot. I have a soft spot for Kikaiju's on the series that were self-aware. So he had a sense of honor and a sense of pride, and he refused to fight Mazinger unless it was on equal ground. He refused to fight while Mazinger was damaged or injured, and he refused to shoot against exposed humans. He was ordered to kill Sayaka and Misato, who were riding on a motorcycle, and he refused. Which is interesting because he destroyed the passenger plane early in the series. It makes me think that maybe that passenger plane was empty, controlled remotely, and that Dr. Hell used it just to show his underlings the accuracy of the robot. Um, in fact, he got upset when he was reprimanded for not killing Sayaka and Misato, and he shot against Ashura and Broken in because he got angry. So he definitely had his own mind. But Messenger clearly had the upper hand when they fought each other, and he decided to destroy himself, kill himself, like we saw here, rather than being destroyed by Messenger. And Koji himself said at the end of the episode, our battle will remain in my memory forever. This was a very, very memorable robot. Quite the character. And the ending was shocking. I mean, imagine being a 9-year old and watching this stuff. It's it's hard to not be shocked by what you were seeing. Number five is Halpia P or Pi 17, 17 meters and 190 tons. He had feathers that attached to the enemy and then exploded. He had electromagnetic rays, also optic rays, and these claws were magnetic. And so he could uh, attach, say, an enemy robot there and attack it. The commander was Archduke Gorgon. He destroyed Aphrodite A, and this is one of the reasons why this robot is so infamous. He was eventually destroyed by photon rays, but Koji sometimes had poor judgment, and in this episode, he was teaching Misato how to ride a bike just to make Sayaka upset and jealous, and he got injured in the process. So he was handicapped when he fought Halpia, and this was another time when he was on the verge of defeat. And when Halpia sh- um, shot his feathers, Sayaka got in between Halpia and Messenger, so the feathers attached to her, and when they exploded, they destroyed Aphrodite. She sacrificed herself to save Messenger. Another very shocking moment of this series. Number four, Phaser V2, episode 53, 20 meters and 220 tons. He had optic rays. This disc that we see here flew like a kind of like a frisbee and could cut objects. Um, and the wings also were very sharp and could be used to cut as he flew through uh, objects. And he was very, very, very strong. The commander was Baron Ashura. He cut one of Skrander's wings, he cut Mazinger's legs, and he would have destroyed the Institute if not for the death of his little friend. Because in this episode, we had two robots. This was Phaser V2, the one we see in the picture, and there was Phaser V1, which was a miniature robot. And the strategy here was that Phaser V1 would initiate the attack and then shoot very bright light that blinded the enemy. And then Phaser V2 would appear. So it would give the impression that the little robot became big just to confuse the enemy. Um, and Phaser V2 was another sentient, self aware robot, very attached to the little friend Phaser V1. So when Mazinger destroyed Phaser V1, uh, Phaser V2 became very upset. In fact, Phaser V1 was not easy to kill himself, and he even mocked Mazinger. When Mazinger used the rocket punches, he stood on top of them, gave the impression like he was surfing on them, uh, as if he was mocking Mazinger. So even the little guy was probably sentient. He showed a little bit of a sense of humor. And when he was destroyed, Phaser V2 was in the process of destroying, absolutely destroying the Institute. He paused, he left, he collected the body, and he buried his little friend. And he was very upset. He wanted to avenge Phaser V1, and and he nearly destroyed. This was one of the robots that did the most damage to Mazinger. In fact, it may be the robot that hurt Mazinger the most. He easily cut through the Z alloy and left Mazinger a mess. Eventually, he was destroyed when Koji caused a collision, caused him to collide against the Institute barriers, and then he was hit by the breath of fire. Number three, Gratonios and Vilanias. This is episode 92, the last episode of the series. 25 and 22 meters, respectively, 310 and 240 tons, respectively. Gratonius had the laser rays, the drills, and the elongated arms and electric discharges. And Vilanias, which is the guy on the bottom, had the scales that detached from his body and attacked the enemy. He had corrosive breath, similar to the Ross Hurricane that Messenger used. He had missiles and very powerful jaws, very powerful bite. Commander was Archduke Gorgon, and these two guys destroyed Messenger. It should be said that Messenger was injured, hurt, not in great shape to begin with, but they destroyed him. And Koji had to be saved by what was the first appearance of Great Messenger in the Messenger universe. And these two guys were the first Mikene warriors, and we see one of the characteristics of the Mikene warriors was these faces on the chest. So we were not happy when we saw this as a kid. I know I wasn't. That Messenger was destroyed so easily, and that Great Messenger then destroyed these guys so easily. Like, how were we supposed to feel? Are we supposed to feel to forget about Messenger and just embrace this new robot and this new hero as the next best thing when we were all attached to Messenger and Koji? Just left a bad flavor in our mouths. But Messenger was redeemed later in the Great Messenger series. Number two, Garada K7 and Double SM2. These are the classic uh, enemies that appear on the first episode, 18 and 16 meters each, respectively, 200 tons and 180 tons, respectively. Garada, the guy on top, had these horns that double as boomerangs, missiles that shot from his eyes, um, and elongating arms. And then Douglas, the guy on the bottom, had laser rays, knee spikes, electric discharges, and elongating necks. Commander was Baron Ashura. They basically the damage they did was to the city. Mazinger destroyed them pretty easily. Combination of Ross Hurricane and Photon Rays. And as the first Kikaijus, these ones left indelible mark in our little minds. And also, especially Karada or Garada has appeared in every subsequent adaptation of Mazinger. Uh, very memorable characters that we've seen repeatedly in the Messenger universe. And number one, by far, my favorite Kikaiju, one of my favorite Mecha Rhine X1, episode 61, one of my favorite robots of all time. This episode 61, is my favorite standalone anime episode ever, not only in the Messenger series, but of all the anime series that I've watched. And believe me, I've watched a ton of them. Just the story that they were able to condense and concentrate in 20, 21, 22 minutes is unbelievable. Better than 99% of movies you will ever see. Just incredible, tense, emotional, pathetic, sad, just a whirlwind of emotions that as a little kid you're left basically traumatized. So this robot was 19 meters tall, 210 metric tons. He had this whip that he could attack with, missiles that shot from the abdomen, and a counter helix. The face here protruded and started turning, and it could be used to generate a wind that blocked most attacks. It commanded itself, and we'll talk about that in a second. And um, it destroyed the Kikaiju of the episode, which was River F9. It also destroyed one of Messenger fists by turning back the Ross Hurricane with the helix. So Messenger used the Ross Hurricane, and then the helix turned it back, and the Ross Hurricane destroyed one of Messenger's fists. And this was another robot that self-destroyed. So here's the deal. Um, there was a girl called Lorelei that Shiro befriended at the beginning of the episode. And it turns out she was the daughter of a very bright scientist that was working for Dr. Hale. He had the mission of building the most powerful robot in the world to destroy Mazinger. And the way that he wanted to have the upper hand was for the robot and the command center to be one. Instead of, for example, Koji and Messenger, there was a delay between order and action. By having the command center within the robot, that would accelerate the reaction time and give his creation the upper hand. So that command center was another robot that he built in the form of a girl, and it was Lorelei, the girl that Shiro met earlier in the episode. When her father was killed, she took her upon herself to fulfill his initial plan, and she removed the ribbon she had on her hair and then her consciousness was transferred to the robot. That's why her face appears here. And she fought Mazinger to pretty much a tie, until Koji realized that if he attacked the command center, then the robot would be easier to be destroyed. So he shot those penetrating missiles that were shot from inside his arms, and they penetrated her face. It was a very cruel death. And then the he cut the robot from the back, the robot's back, and that's how he was able to make her defenseless. And once in that condition, she decided she would rather kill herself rather than face defeat. So she killed herself with the whip by hitting her own face. Very. Then this was all in front of Shiro. Very sad. Very traumatic. This is such a masterpiece, such a masterpiece that when Messenger was remade, they um, there was a remake called Messenger Edition Z, The Impact, directed by Yasuhiro Imagawa, who is a god of remakes. I mean, he's the guy in charge. He was the guy in charge of the Giant Robo 90s OVAs, and then he did this remake, and he turned this episode into a 3 episode arc. I think recognizing the magnitude of the story and wanting to give it more space to breathe. And finally, this robot was a precursor of the Mikene warriors with the face on the chest. It's the first time we saw anything like that. This is a book. It's called Messenger Encyclopedia. I don't know if it's available in English, but this is where I got the numbers for the robots in terms of height and weight. Great book. It helped me organize the information. It helped me greatly. And finally, this is my humble Messenger collection. This is Rhine. This is Messenger. This is Garada. This is the stamp album we had in Latin America. This is the soundtrack. This is a book with one of the story of one of the episodes. Brutus was the robot. He needed a diamond to complete his arm system, a weapon that it was a ray, very powerful ray. This is the Messenger Encyclopedia, volumes 1 and 2, the Messenger DVDs, the Great Messenger series, and the God Messenger series. Uh, Great Messenger is good, not as good as Messenger, and God Messenger is okay. So, as usual, guys, thank you for your time. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Bye.